I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Finance Committee of the Holyoke City Council. We're starting a few minutes late. Councilor Leahy is stuck on the turnpike, but he should be joining us shortly. To my right is at-large Councilor Mike Sullivan. To my left, first is Peter Tallman at-large, and then the President of the City Council, also a member of the Finance Committee, Todd McGee. My name is Joe McGiverin. For those of you who don't know me, we have a good agenda this evening, and we will get through all of it. And with that in mind, the chair would like to have a motion on item number 1.
Motion to take up and be moved to the table, item number 1.
Is the memorandum agreement between the City of Holyoke and NAGE R1-180 Clerical Union. I believe items 2 and 3 go with this item, Tanya, if I'm right. So if we could just, for discussion purposes, the monies that would go with this negotiated bargaining unit agreement would be items 2 and 3 for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With us, we have representatives from the Law Department, the Auditing Department, and I believe the Clerical Union is here too. Okay. How would you like to come forward? Kevin, right? Kevin, could you just give the full name for the City Council and the record? Tasha, you want to come in? You want to? Yeah. And Tanya, you're always welcome to come in on on the Finance Committee evening. Sure. If, the role of the City Council in any agreement is not necessarily the agreement itself, because we cannot negotiate terms between the union and the city. We do not bargain. However, the City Council does approve the appropriation, which initiates always with the mayor, comes to the City Council, for which would pay for the increases in any said contract. That vote is usually for the given fiscal year, which could mean retroactive monies. And it is important, although we're not voting this year, to know any financial impacts for future years. So with that in mind, traditionally what we do is we ask the representative from the Law Department, Tasha is with us, just to highlight the contract, and then we'll go into, Kevin, if the president. Okay, so, you want to talk about, your side and anything like that, and then we'll go into questions and answers. Our auditor is here with us this evening, so if there's any questions about the source of the monies, we certainly will go to her. Okay, Tasha, you just want to run us through it?
Sure. Again, Tasha Marshall, Assistant City Solicitor. So this is for the NAGE contract, which expired on June 30th, 2017. We've been in negotiations for only about a year. We signed the contract on December 6th, 2018. So this union consists of about 65 employees, both part-time and full-time, and the demographics of this union varies from clerks, custodians, inspectors, and sanitarians. Most of the members of NAGE have served the city for over 10 years. The average start date for NAGE employees is January 8th, 2009, and the most senior employee of NAGE was hired in 1973. So the major contract changes are for fiscal year 18. These employees did not receive a raise. So this would only be for retro pay for fiscal year 19. So July 1st, 2018, there will be a 1.5% raise. And on January 1st, 2019, it will be a 1% raise. And then in fiscal year 20, it will be a 2% raise. So the average increase is about $810 for each employee. That includes retro. So after the increase, the average salary for NAGE employees is about $20 per hour, or about $37,000 a year.
Tasha, is there any other items in the agreement that could have a financial impact on the city budget?
No, that's the only the wage increases will be the only financial impacts.
Are there any other major changes in the contract going into the new agreement?
Nope. The wage increase is the only major change. there was just a change to the dress code, just giving the city a little bit more protection. Employees must maintain neat, well-groomed appearances at any time. Granted, I've only been with the city for about 7 months, but I don't think that we ever had any issues with employee appearances in the past. I think that this was something that was just added to the contract to put it in writing.
Tasha, you may have only been with us for 7 months, but that presentation is one of the most detailed presentations I've ever heard. And if, you're on top of this type of item, I'm sure you're going to be with us for a long time if you so choose.
Thank you.
But thank you. Kevin, would you like to put the spotlight on you and tell us all about the union? And we can't add to this, you understand that, but we can talk about, what's going on.
Well, I think this is a step in the right direction. We took an approach of just trying to focus on wages. I think there's still some room down the line for movement. Especially it would benefit the city with the retention in some positions to upgrade some salaries. So pretty much I think this is a step in the right direction.
Okay. And Tanya, items 2 and 3, free cash, so we know the source, there's no issue there.
Yes.
We can talk about how much free cash we have left, but at this moment, these items would take care of both the fiscal 2018 and the 1% for 2019 January?
It's all fiscal year 2019, and it would be their retro back to July 1st to the end of the year.
Okay, I said it wrong, but that's what I meant.
Okay, I just wanted to, okay.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yes.
Okay, so we have enough money to cover it, and then, of course, the next budget will address the next increase when the mayor comes in sometime in May, June. Questions from the committee or from Councilor? I'm sorry, we also have with us this evening Councilor Murphy, who is not the new kid on the block because he sat in chairs like the one he's sitting in 100 years ago, because I was there with him. But he is back representing the good residents of Ward 2 and the whole city council and the whole city. Welcome, Terrence. And Jim Leahy has joined us, as I said he would. He was only 1 minute late to the rest of us. We blame the turnpike, Jim, don't worry. Any questions from the committee? Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. And that's exactly, I was coming back from Boston behind some plows, so I could not pass those big plows. So I apologize for being late. However, as Joe was saying, I'm sure you already mentioned it before, is when we pass these tonight, I'm going to vote for it. How much free cash do we have left?
$123,500.
$123,500. And I know you don't have a crystal ball in front of you. In fact, we had a snowstorm since the last time we saw you. Mr. McManus, did he give you any?
The last update I have was from before the previous storm, so I'm sure I'll be getting an update from him soon.
And I know you're really new and you haven't been here through a whole season yet, but I'm assuming that one snowstorm is probably.
I'm not that, honestly, not that familiar with that
Nor
budget.
should you be at this point.
In what, you know what I mean, what it takes to,
Right.
especially if it's like a foot of snow, it's
Right,
not.
right. No, I just want to make sure. Because
He's really good about updating me, so I'm sure I'll have that soon if you
You guys
want the
communicate well
information.
and-
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. So after, hypothetically, these all vote tonight, in the full city council meeting, we vote for these as well. We're going to have $123,000 in free cash available to June 30th, right?
And then we cleared up $40,000 worth of deficits that we haven't done the journal entries for yet, but that would bring us to $163,656.
Explain that again. So it's going to,
We had some deficits in some of our funds, like grants and scholarship funding, and we took some time to after we worked with Melanson and Heath, and we looked into those, we did the research, we worked with the different departments, and we were able to actually clear some of them up.
so after this is all said and done, Tuesday, hypothetically, we're actually going to have 163.
Correct.
All right, so that's better news. And that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Councilor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that this seems fair, a contract for the employees. It's important. Kevin, you mentioned about retaining employees, and that's important because I think we've seen several employees in our community leave in our city because of the low pay, and going on to better jobs. So this is an important step, and anytime I come into City Hall, I do check out some of the offices and see everybody hard at work, doing their job in a very professional manner. And I think it's important. It's a good feeling that I come down there for city business and see people doing the work they're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. And I really commend Tasha for the job with this contract, to keep some of our good employees here. And seeing one of the employees from 1973, that's something. And to give them some kind of a benefit for being here that long tenured employees. So I thank you for working on this, and I thank the members of the union and the workers that do some of the tough work in the city and sometimes don't see the gratitude that we have for you. So thank you.
And that's spoken from a counselor who in 1973 was in high school. He was a junior.
Sophomore.
I was a senior.
I was called a
You're a
sophomore.
sophomore, you
Yeah.
baby.
I wasn't born yet.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, just, first of all, I'm certainly in favor of giving people salary increases, and it's sad when we have to have people that are not getting what they probably would deserve. But just as a advance of what's gonna happen in FY '20, is this cost in FY '20 somewhere in the vicinity of 50 or 55,000 additional? Would that be approximately correct, an additional? Okay. Okay. But it was 1.5 for half of the year, right? And then 1 for... So close to 50. Okay. That's it, Joe, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or any other discussion? On the contract, the chair would entertain a motion that the contracts be complied with. We'll keep a copy for committee. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On the two orders, if you want to do them together, no objections. The motion would be to adopt and refer these to the city council for their approval. Any further
Second.
discussion? Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We meet, when do we meet, Todd?
Next week.
Next
Tuesday.
week.
Next Tuesday.
You should anticipate the full city council will act on these next Tuesday night, and I'm sure you do not have to be here. You can if you wish. If you're not here, you can watch us on TV, or you can get the news from the city clerk the next day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tasha, thank you. All right, moving on. Item number 4 is a grant, Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. The City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the fiscal 2019 Senator Charles Shannon Jr. Community Safety Incentive Shannon CSI grants and authorizes the establishment of fund and or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures and all resources associated with the said administrative grant. Any grants that are presented to us are signed off by the mayor, presented to the full city council, who referred it to this committee, and we do have a communication from the mayor. And with us this evening is John Hart from the Holyoke Police Department to run us through this. Is this an annual grant, John, or CSI kind of threw me off? I thought, was that
Yes,
just?
it is.
Okay. So motion to take off the table for discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? John, can you update us where we are and get into, the details we look
Yes,
for?
okay, so this is the Shannon grant. This is the first year in probably 4 years that it's went up. In the past years, it's been a decrease in funding, but it went up by roughly $50,000. The total amount is for $434,981.27. The bulk of that, just this grant, what it is that it's a anti-gang youth violence prevention grant that serves youth from the ages of 10 to 24. The majority of the funding, almost half of it, goes to the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club and the Chicopee Boys and Girls Club to implement their evidence-based programs such as the Smart Moves. They also offer after-school programming and activities that help promote health, academics, physical fitness, and peer relationships. So that $215,000 is split up between the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club and the Chicopee Boys and Girls Club. The other members, again, are the Holyoke Police Department. Our portion is $104,454. And that funding goes to our gang suppression units, or our gang suppression details, and our mobile community policing details as well.
And when you say you use that with overtime dollars or for
That's-
staffing?
Yes. Yes, that's, the other partner is Mass Hire, used to be Career Point. Their portion is $40,214. They're gonna be providing job training, career opportunities, exploration, helping the youth with resume and job employments. The other partner is Holyoke Community College. They're gonna be getting roughly $28,000 for their high set program and the adult basic education programming. The Sheriff's Department is gonna be receiving approximately $20,000 for their youth sports program, as well as their neighborhood outreach. The Holyoke High School will be receiving $14,000 for their restorative justice program. Gandara Mental Health will be receiving approximately $7,000 for their mentoring, where they'll be mentoring 35 high-risk youth, utilizing the anti-gang and violence prevention programming. And the other two partners are Holyoke Housing and Chicopee Housing. They aren't receiving money, however, they're contributing in-kind contributions. The Holyoke Housing with 3 satellite units for the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, and the Chicopee Housing for space and supplies for their after-school programming.
And you didn't mention any matching funds from the cities?
No matching.
No matchings, okay. Other questions, Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. You said this, first of all, I just want to make it known, and be known to everyone that I'm a lifelong member, board member of the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club. I, of course, have no financial interest in this. In fact, I pay money to be on the board just as well as you do. So it costs me money. And I also have 2 brothers in the police department, but our prior our city solicitor, Kara, had said there's no reason I should not vote on this because it's a broad stroke. It goes to many different things. But one thing I did want to ask you, you said the Sheriff's Department has a youth sports program. And I do know that the Sheriff's Department, Ludlow Jail, reaches out to many different communities. Where is that youth sports program located?
It's one of the sessions that they have the basketball program at the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, so in Holyoke.
Yes.
All right, I'm not going to argue with that then. All right. All right, I was going to get a little upset if it was in Ludlow, but it's here.
Actually, it's the Sheriff's Department, but underneath that and operating in Holyoke is the Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative.
Okay.
That's where the funding
This
goes.
is Eddie Case, who
Yes.
we honored a little
Right.
while back. And,
Yeah.
and that thing has grown so quick over the last 4 or 5 years, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think the last, we had like over 240 youth involved in that.
Yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about this, so I'm obviously going to support this. Thank you.
Councilor McGee?
Quick question, we said Gandara, 7,000. Is that the same group that owes us money from the rent?
Yep, geriatric authority.
Is there any way we can attach that?
I don't believe so for a grant, but it brings up a good topic as far as our road jobs. I brought this up in the past on allowing other vendors to bid on jobs when they still owe money to the city, and whose responsibility is that to follow up with that. That's kind of like the same situation here, I guess.
How much do they still owe us? It's a hefty sum, wasn't it? I think that's what we should, I mean, they're still collecting money, but that they owe the city on liability, so.
Are they still up there, do you know?
No one's up there,
No.
but they still owe.
Someone, and we've talked about this, you know, last year it was restorative justice, and we brought the schools in. We got a reasonable explanation from them. We heard from our good friend down the girls' club, down the Boys and Girls Club, Eileen, you know, what this money means to them, and if we deny it, you know, everybody loses. But it's that same question over and over again, and I'm not going to pose it to Tanya right now, though, is we're we're using a lot of money in the Shannon Grant, but we're also being used as the funnel of the state to put the Shannon Grant through us, and ends up in Chicopee for two good organizations, and which is fine, but if something happens, you know, is there responsibility of the city, you know, to be on top of that? And if Condera is using this for high-risk youth, and that dollar is spent dollar for dollar on a high-risk youth, you know, legitimately, I don't have a problem with that. But if Condera is using this just to pad their budget and pay their, you know, their upper echelon, you know, which it's an umbrella that's just growing so big that, you know, whether, I'm not gonna get into it, but you know what I'm talking about, because we've been burnt by one of these agencies, not just what Condera did at the Geriatric Authority, which I think is a little separate from this, but what the program over on Cabot Street, or not Cabot Street, on Jackson Street. You know, they were just making up numbers to justify the money that was coming in from the state. And if there's no watchdog, eventually the state's gonna catch up to them, and are they gonna come back and look at the city and say, you know, aren't you responsible for this? It's the same question every year, John, I know. And nobody has an answer.
What do you mean responsible for? We have backup paperwork as they submit their invoices and when they seek their reimbursement. So if they're submitting paperwork that's inaccurate.
That's what I'm talking about. It's already happened once, and we both know it. That group is no longer part of the Shannon Grant, or part of, I don't know if they're part of anything anymore.
Right, but
It does happen.
Part of their backup would be to have names of individuals who they're working with. So Eileen, who is kind of the program manager for this whole grant, has very meticulous records and follows up on any discrepancies whatsoever. So I don't think there'll be an issue as far as them conducting the work.
But I don't think she's got the same records for the Chicopee Boys and Girls Club. You know, I'm sure she's in good contact with the powers to be there. And anyways, that's my concern. It's the good outweighs the bad, but someday this is gonna come back and haunt us. Councilor Murphy.
Two things. The mobile community policing, how much did you say that was?
It's combined. It's split the gang suppression details and the mobile community policing details.
Okay.
The total amount is 104,454.
104,000?
Yes, sir.
And gang suppression, but also when they do the community policing, I'm assuming that's overtime pay?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
so, okay. And is it kind of targeted towards certain things? I'm assuming.
Yes, it's for high-risk gangs and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and just as a novice to this grant, I'm still a little confused as to how come Chicopee is getting. Is it a state requirement that we have to share with another community?
No, it's, I think when it first began, they were kind of looking for bigger numbers, and so we got Chicopee involved. And since then, we retained Chicopee. However, the funding has decreased, you know, year after year. It just started to go up this year. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, so thank you. So this has been around for many, many years, and so we've been the program manager, and I almost think it's almost a feather in our cap, or almost your cap, or the police department's cap, because I think we've done a fantastic job of making sure that the Shannon Grant and other grants that are similar to this are well maintained. The last time you were in front of us, I did say I was going to file an order, and I did file an order, and Councilor Bartley filed on with it with a follow-up, making sure that after any grant has been exercised or it's through, that we get either a report from you or Eileen Kavanaugh or somebody else. Now, what is the end date of this grant?
It's a calendar year grant, so the end date is December 31st. And there's final reporting that's required by the state, so I can make sure that our the person we have, Mike Kresmian from University of Mass, who does the reporting, submit a copy to the
What's that person's name?
Mike Kresmian, Dr. Mike Kresmian.
Okay, because right now it's an ordinance committee, and hopefully it becomes an ordinance that anytime we accept a grant through the city, that we, the city council, specifically through the finance committee, through the rest of the committee, we do get some disaggregation of the data and whatnot. So even before that's full or filled, the ordinance, any ordinances, I'm sorry, any grants that you have in front of us, if you can just give us that information as well, moving forward. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion from the committee? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the Shannon grant. Recommend that to the full city council next week. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John, thank you very much,
Right, thank you.
as always. Item number 5 is an order that in accordance with Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the Students' Awareness of Fire Education and Senior Awareness of Fire Education SAFE SAFE grant, authorizes the establishment of fund and other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts, expenditures, and all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Welcome. You
Good evening.
guys dress up for us, too? Yeah? I mean, I'm impressed.
We haven't left work yet.
Thank you. There's no, well, we understand. We're just trying to run through the grant, ask some questions, and make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll give our recommendation to the full city council. But Chief, do you want to lead us through it?
I can begin, but I'm going to actually hand it over to Lieutenant Pelchar. She's been running this grant for over a decade now, and it's a grant we get every year. There's no match, and she can go through the specifics of the grant.
Hey,
Maria Pelcher, and this is a very small grant, $7,400. It is given by the tax, the cigarette taxes, given to the Department of Fire Services, and they distribute it to the cities and towns per population. So the maximum, and pretty much the same, we get the same money all the time, it's $7,400.
Councilor Heat?
Yeah, thank you. So that's on behalf of cigarette nicotine and.
Yes.
So with marijuana now legal, will we get some sort of grant for that?
We have actually been trained to, like, the manufacturers and the places that are going to be opened, and we have been going to a lot of classes for training on. Tobacco is already a big part of it, so I assume it's going to be pretty much the same thing for marijuana.
Well, the great quote in that movie, "Show me the money." So will we see any money because of that?
You got a point. I will bring that up to the upper people. Yes,
Please
you
do.
got a
Thank
point.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, we see you everywhere. We thank you, for the service that you do provide.
what I do, thank you.
Not just the service that you get paid for, but you do an exemplary job on a lot of the activities. I know some of it may come through this grant, but some of it just comes from what you do. This past year, can you highlight any of the events that this may have helped happen?
Sure. So every year we have to apply for it, and every year we have to do an end of the year report. So my end of the year report for is one of them is community education activities. So we do training programs where we visit places like social workers, different agencies, so we teach the people that visit other homes how to walk around and look and correct fire safety. For fire safety, we do literacy events, like read out loud programs. The firefighters go into the mall, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., Home or House. We do pen pile program too. We do fire life safety education workshops, and that will be for the homeless shelters, the young mother schools, the GED programs, the English as a second language programs, the special needs schools. We go into all the career days in the schools. We attend numerous health fairs, research, and informational fairs throughout the whole city. We do bicycle rodeos, which is bicycle and helmet safety. Car seat checkup event is a big part of it. We have to have 3 open houses for car seat checkup events, and we do average of about 3 car seats a day, 3 car seat installations a day. Tours of the station is part of this too, Halloween at the fire department. We do a Kids Can't Fly campaign. Part of the program is to teach adults window safety, and when requested, we provide window guards for the windows, and not only that, but we also install them for them. We do fire prevention weeks, visit to the schools. We visit all the schools from preschool, first grade, second grade, and third grade. The grant, it says at least 3 times per year. So one of them has to be classroom style presentation. So each classroom gets visited by a fire department personnel. It's usually 3 or 4 of us that go in together. We visit, well, I'm in one classroom, 3 others are in different classrooms, so we do it faster. We're usually in the school for like 2 weeks, trying to reach everybody.
Thank you. Would you have a copy of that report, or is that?
I have a copy of everything that I have in front of me for you, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
In the annual report that I'm giving you, yes, this is pretty much the same. Can I just add one thing, because also it's the senior part of it. We do senior home visits, so we used to do them every Tuesday and Thursday, but we have slowed down a little bit. People are not signing up as much, so we do them every Thursday. We visit a home, and we install the smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, as many as they need. We talk about fire safety, and we do a walkthrough for fire safety too. That's every Thursday. We do fire safety workshops, and pretty much every single, I counted 8 senior high-rises, I call them, so 8 senior complexes. In the community room, they tell fire department is going to be here, and they all come down and listen to me talk about fire safety.
Nice. Very nice.
Can I ask you a question?
Council A.
How do those people know how to sign up for, so you said you used to do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. I didn't know about this. How do people find out about it?
So we have about 2,000 people on our Facebook page, and I ask people to please share it. I also put it in the Hello Holyoke community forum.
11,000 people on that.
Yeah, right? And I ask people to share it. And then I visit the Council on Aging. I put flyers everywhere. We do go to the senior picnic, and we announce it out loud. I'm there for people to sign up. That's when we get most of our signups. Yep. Please spread the word. We don't want to stop the program because it's really going strong. Yes, absolutely, and we can.
Any other discussion? Councilor Tomlin.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks, Maria. And I know I see you out there at several events and different things with, talking about fire safety. The one thing I talked about, especially this time of year with, and I know it's been advertised, smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. Is that something that's still, pretty much active with people, and people can contact the fire department?
Right, and it's actually, yes, we actually encourage people to please call the fire department, the non-emergency number, and there's no requirement. All that is required is for you to have a home, to somewhere for us to go install it. Now, we don't go into the blocks, city blocks, because per law, it is mandated that the landlord provide the smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. So when people call us, it just takes a phone call from us saying, we want to do a walkthrough to make sure that their smoke alarms are there, and they're supposed to buy them. But private homes, we even do it for for 3 family homes, 1, 2, and 3 family homes, and there's no requirement. Anybody can call. We go to your house if you need it.
No, are those provided by the fire department?
So a lot of them are provided by the grant, and a lot of them are provided by the Red Cross. Okay. So they're also help out. A couple of years ago, we asked them for help, and they were very good about it, and they give us the smoke alarms and the carbon monoxides.
That's great, because the thing we always hear around Halloween, your smoke change your battery, but
right.
There's also a lifespan on these smoke detectors. A lot of people forget they're in a house for 15, 20 years, and they never change their smoke detector or their carbon monoxide, especially this time of year. So I think it's
so the ones that we're given were the 10-year sealed battery, so you can't change the battery, you can't touch the battery for 10 years. So the lifespan is 10 years. After 10 years, you have to change the whole unit.
The whole unit, right.
So hopefully, I'm hoping that we're still here after 10 years, so we can go back and exchange it for another 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, recently, most of them last about 10 years, the smoke detectors are carbon monoxide. And,
right.
I think it's important, for people to know that, you just don't change your battery. Sometimes you got to,
right.
Smoke detectors have been there for 15 years, and now it's not going to work properly. So, but thanks for all your work to do out there, educating the public.
And most of the budget, actually, because I work Monday through Friday, but most of the budget goes towards for example, of our nice coloring books, Holyoke Fire Department, and pens and pencils that we distribute to all the kids. So we have to have about 6,000 or 10,000 of each. Obviously, that costs money. So a lot of that goes buying helmets and stickers and coloring books and all these things that kids love. And if you offer a senior citizen a mitten or a free calendar, they'll be there. So we need to have something for them too.
Some city councils love that too.
I don't blame them.
I can recall several years ago when I was first on the council, we had a gentleman that did the fire safety, and we had actually I just saw him last week down at the Children's Museum. It was Freddie the fire truck.
Oh, yes.
These kids see that, and that was something they used in the schools, which is important.
Right.
You know,
So
to
the big
message
thing
it.
now is Sparky, Sparky the fire dog, because it's easier to carry. We do have a brand new Freddy, but it takes a group of like 2 or 3 people, and that's a lot more, in my head, it's a lot more overtime to pay. So if you can only pay one guy to do Sparky, we do probably even more with Sparky.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and like I said, seeing that down at the Children's Museum and seeing the next generation with the fire truck down there and the hats and the jackets and everything, I think it's important, you know, part of the education for the next generation coming up. But thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, so just getting into the apartment situation. So if I had some constituents that were tenants and they did not have smoke alarms or carbon monoxide systems there, would they, if they called you, would you then notify the building department, or how do we get to that
No,
point?
I actually call the owner or the maintenance people, and they're very receptive to the fire department. Pretty much all it takes is one phone call. Excuse me, and then there will be, yes, of course, we'll, do the installations, and then we set up a reinspection date. 2-3 weeks later, we go back and everything is up to code. So yes, I actually encourage people to call and let us know they don't have smokes, because we can just call the landlords or the maintenance companies.
So if I have tenants in my ward that are telling me they're not sure they have smoke detectors or whatever, or they're not up to date,
Right.
that I should have them touch
Call
base with you.
Maria at the Fire Prevention Bureau. We'll be happy to come out there.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion. Motion made second to approve, recommend adoption to the full city council next week. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Don't move,
No.
okay? I have a feeling we're going to do this either real quick or not do anything at all on item number 6. Item 6 is a request for $218.40 be authorized from the mayor's department's dues and subscriptions appropriation fiscal year 2019 for services rendered in 2018. This has been signed off by the mayor, signed off by the availability of the funds by the auditor. Chair will entertain a motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The mayor did communicate to me, happy birthday, Alex, that he could not be here today because he had an event, I guess honoring his birthday that he had to be at. So be it. This bill is for the Daily Republican, $218.40. It's an unpaid bill. We have the invoice, a note, I think it's from the purchasing department, that it needs to be paid, and it needs to be paid from, well, this year we'll be paying for last year.
What's the article for? Or the
No,
advertising?
it's for getting the paper.
Getting the what?
Hang on, I'm just reading it. It says, Mayor's Office, Republican Daily Reactivation fees? Is this for? But it is receiving the paper. Yeah, okay. So this is money owed to get the subscription for the daily paper renewed.
Are we allowed to get that too?
When he's done with it, we'll have him send it to Ryan, and then we'll read it when we get here tonight. Okay? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of it, but I understand your question. Any other discussion? Any questions?
Is it just one paper to the office or to multiple offices?
For a year, probably, yeah.
Oh, for a year for just one paper?
Not the weekend, yeah, it's quite a bit. For a quarter, it's like $150 for a quarter for the Sunday and the daily. Yeah. Yeah, was paid. Second.
Motion made and second to approve. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-1. All right. Next item, item 7. We're revisiting some work we did about a month or a month and a half ago. This is redone language for the bond that we had approved with the fire department for apparatus. This new language is, well, let me read it quickly, and then we can get an explanation of why we're doing this or revisiting this. Revision to the previous bond order in your council of $2,600,000 appropriated to pay the cost for the purchase of 2 ladder trucks, 1 quint, 2 command vehicles, purchase of all the tools, equipment, training, etc. for the vehicles. There's no training though, is there? All right, never mind, hang on, we'll ask that in a minute. These funds will cover the cost of the 10% match, which is $88,636 for the assistance of the firefighters grant, which has since been received for $975,000, and the payment of all costs incidental related hereto, and that meets the appropriation of the treasurer with the approval of the mayor to authorize to borrow the said amount under Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1 of the general laws pursuant to the enabling authority, and the issuing of bonds or notes of the city. Therefore, the mayor is authorized to contract for and expend any state aid available for the project, and the mayor is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the project. I'm going to stop there for a second, and maybe we can get the explanation of why we're here again, and then open it up for discussions. Tanya, I know you're a big part of this, and Chief, you want to run us through it?
Sure. Before I start, I'd like to thank Lieutenant Pelchar for an excellent presentation and to show that there's so many things being done every day by the fire department, and that's just one example of what we do over there. Fire prevention department is second to none, as I've been saying for years. And as part of our ISO score, we actually get pretty high marks because of all the work they do, so thank you. As far as the language in the bond, initially it was for 2 ladder trucks, 2 command vehicles, and that was obviously not put into the bond language initially. When I came back in, I was looking for $2.5 million initially. When I came back in, we had received a $975,000 grant for a new ladder truck. So with the blessing of Councilor McGee, he made a common sense statement and said, why don't we just get a new engine 5? So I appreciate that. Went back to the drawing board, came back. In order to get a new engine 5, instead of 2.5, we would need 2.6 million. So the 2.6 million plus the 975,000 in the grant would total, actually, without the 10% match, would be obviously almost 3.6 million. So there's a 10% match for that grant of 975,000, and the match is $88,636, leaving a grand total of $886,364 for the AFG grant for 1 ladder truck. So that amount with the $2.6 million bond makes up the total amount to pay for the 2 ladder trucks, engine 5, which is the quint, and 2 command vehicles. And I know the city council was gracious enough to give options, which I really appreciate. Councilor McGiverin explained all those options out, and we went with the best option, in my opinion, was to get 2 new ladder trucks, a new quint, and 2 command vehicles. So really, we're just trying to make the language in the bond reflect what we're actually purchasing with that amount. And Councilor McGiverin, if I may, the training portion is each ladder truck that comes in and the quint is going to get, every firefighter is going to get trained on each one of those vehicles. Also, part of the grant process is that we have an emergency vehicle operators class where every firefighter or the bulk load of them go to this class. It's a 2-day class, 1 day of classroom and 1 day of driving. United Tractor Trailer up at the mall is actually allowing us to use their course to drive through. We've already sent 2 groups through, so they've already been trained in emergency vehicle operator class. through the Mass Fire Academy, and now we're putting the other 2 groups through. Unfortunately, they're, one of them, the road test is tomorrow, so we may have to delay that day. But it's really working out well. I believe there's only maybe 3 or 4 people in the department that aren't going through the class for various reasons. So basically, we have over 100 firefighters getting trained for this class while they're on shift. It's not costing overtime, so we're getting things done in the fire department. So that's part of the training that we're doing with that. So,
I think training is important, and I
Yes.
understand there's only so much you can do in-house. Years ago, a good friend of mine, Captain Cabal, who I won't mention his name, was on a ladder truck with a couple of new recruits. It wasn't Maria. And, there was the mechanism, for the person on the back of the ladder that is communicating with the driver as we're taking, the turn, and we each are turning in the opposite direction. And I lived on Beach Street, and I lived on the 2nd floor. And as the ladder truck didn't quite make the turn and sideswiped my sister's car, ended up on the front lawn, and just about 5 steps up to where when I opened the door, I just looked someone right in the face and said, "Hey, Paul, how you doing?" Now, Paul says this never happened. And I do exaggerate a little bit with some of these stories because that was a long time ago. And I understand training is very well done in the fire department in-house. But I thank you for answering that question because I think it does make sense on new apparatus. We've had this discussion, and Councilor McGee, made some great observations at the last Finance Committee meeting. And then we got to the full City Council meeting. Tanya, can you just give us the reason for the change, not the change, but the reason, your concerns, and the revisiting for the language, or the language that wasn't there, I guess is a better way to put it.
So the reason for it is because ultimately, when your external auditors come in and they look at your communication from your city council, they want to be able to see what you're purchasing with these bonds. So if the difference of the bond was over like $700,000, so I was trying to figure out, and I was working with the fire department, how it was. I had got mixed communication. Some people thought there was only going to be 2 fire trucks, and then the chief was saying, no, we're supposed to be getting command vehicles as well. So in order for us to meet, your regulatory standards, you should have everything that you're going to be purchasing with this money, with fund numbers, and to be able to show with your backup that you're actually doing what your council would like you to do with these funds and your city taxpayers.
Thank you. And you're confident now, because the language came through your department, that this would be the correct language for what we're trying to accomplish here?
Yes.
Okay. And Chief, I think you're confident that what we're trying to accomplish is what the fire department needs. And I think not just this evening, but I think we've discussed this in full at the prior meetings, and then the full city council meeting too. So are there any questions? Councilor Sullivan.
Thanks. Chief, you mentioned some training from United Tractor Trailer for EMT vehicles, but is there any training specifically for these the new vehicles?
Actually, we're using the ladder truck to drive through the course up at United Tractor Trailer. They're not participating in the training. We have the Mass Fire Academy giving the class, and they set up obstacle courses and different types of obstacles for them to drive through. They time the events to see how they go through the course. So it's actually a pretty extensive training course, and all the firefighters go through it and operate the vehicle. So they're all using, right now they're using the old truck one to go through.
And so this isn't for EMT vehicles, this is actually for the new trucks that we're buying?
Correct. The 2 ladder trucks and the Quint, that's what this is for. Yes, it's not for a small vehicle, it's for a ladder truck.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this a couple of months back, but is there any movement towards requiring some of the drivers to have commercial driver's licenses I think the weight on, what's the weight on these new trucks?
40,000 gross vehicle weight, but as far as the CDL license, that is, firefighters in Massachusetts are exempt from having a CDL to drive that vehicle. And as far as them getting their CDL, that would have to be something negotiated in a contract.
Okay. I'm just going to stay on that one. It still just seems bizarre to me that, you know, our trash collectors have to have a commercial driver's license to go pick up the trash barrels and the recycles, but our firefighters don't. I know.
Just abide by the laws. I mean, I drove tanks in the Army and dump trucks, and I didn't have a CDL, so, I mean.
Well, I don't think you took the tanks out on the public streets. I hope not anyways. So,
Sometimes you have to.
okay, that's it.
Councilor McGee.
Yeah, can you just tell the people at home, we understand the 2 ladder trucks and the Quint, what are the command vehicles again? Can you describe those one more time?
The command vehicles are a new chief's car and a new deputy chief's car, car 20 and car 21. And car 20 has already been purchased, and part of that package is the car is $32,000, bought off the lot, and it's actually $2,000 cheaper than the car that was purchased 15 years ago.
But what are they?
They are command vehicles to run incidents.
No, I understand. They're Ford Explorers or Ford Expeditions? Or?
Ford Explorer is car 20, and a Ford Expedition for car 21. That's a deputy chief's vehicle, incident command.
Okay. And the cost for each one again was?
The Explorer is $32,500, something like that. And the Expedition, I'm not sure off the top of my head at this point, 38, 39. It's a larger vehicle to hold command display boards and whatnot in the back, and keys, equipment.
Okay. So September 5th, 2018, $2.6 million for 2 aerial trucks, 1 Quint. City of Holyoke Fire Department, Chapter 44, Section 7. So on and so forth. No mention of command vehicles. Followed by further order that there shall be no change in the purpose of this bond authorized without prior approval of the city council. Hence is why we're here, is because you only have the money for 2 ladder trucks and a Quint. You do not have money for 2 command vehicles.
That was part of the options that were given out that night at city council, was the 2 command vehicles, the 2 ladder trucks, and
So
the Quint.
let's be real clear. 2 options came before this council. One was for two ladder trucks, or 2 ladder trucks and a Quint. That's what I read up there. Pull the tape out. I did.
That is correct.
So now we're going back to adding 2 command vehicles. I just want to be clear on this.
Yes.
Because what was given, I know we talked about it, but what was also given to the full council was this bond was going to help, or not, this grant was going to help offset the cost of the bond. Therefore, we're now adding 2 command vehicles to the cost. Let's just say it truthfully. $40,000 for one, another for, so an Expedition and whatever the other one is, I forgot what you said. So we're changing the bond language because, as I like to call it, the Bartley Amendment says you cannot change the purpose of the bond without prior authorization of the council. So when I received the email from the auditor saying they want to change that, I said you can't. You have to come back with new bond language to add in the 2 new vehicles. That's why we're here.
Right.
Transparency. You asked for 2 ladders. I went out on a limb, got beat up by some people in the press saying, why are you adding more to the budget? Because it made more sense to add the Quint knowing we're going to come back next year, and it would have cost more to wait 1 year to do it. So you added the 3rd vehicle. That was the discussion. That's what was voted on by this board, sent up there for the full board to vote on. Now we're coming back and saying, hey, let's add 2 more. I don't mind that, but let's be really true about what happened here. That's why this got caught. And thanks to her following the rule, you didn't add it to the bond without us knowing, because if bond counsel came back, we could have got whacked for it. That's the problem. I have no problem adding the 2 trucks to there because they're needed. The other ones are old, they're too much mileage, all the same stuff we hear. But that's why we're here. So we're adding more. It's going to add to the bond, which in essence should come off the bond to offset, kind of like Pouliot Pool, which is we bonded for 1.6 because of people like Mike Sullivan and other people in the crowd who are helping us. We added 100,000 to take off the bond because of certain actions. I think even more. Plus we got a grant for 400,000 that takes that off. So it's not really bonding for 1.5 or 1.6. It's really bonding for 900,000. That impacts our taxes and everything else. That's what we need to start watching out. I still have a police department who's looking for police cars. They're in need. So let's just be honest to the taxpayer. That's my point.
Counselor, I don't believe there was anything deceptive. Part of the original bond was supposed to be 2 command vehicles and 2 ladder trucks.
Bonds came to us.
I completely understand that. I didn't realize, I don't really look at the bond language till it goes through. I'm just here.
I read it out loud.
Okay.
Councilor Bartley had complaints about both. Wanted to give you 1 truck.
Okay.
Watch the tape.
Councilor Murphy.
Just a few questions, and I'm coming into this. I did watch the show and saw the original version. So, and I had the same kind of questions as Todd has, because if you had 2.6 million before, and then you got the grant for 975,000, it would appear, and I know you got to contribute the 88,000, that you would have been about 1.8 or 1.9 without doing anything additional. But my other question, the 2 ladder trucks, I'm assuming will replace what you currently have, and will there be one
Correct.
of those kept as a spare in case?
Truck 1 will stay in reserve, the old truck 1.
Okay, and do you already have a Quint?
Yes.
So that'll be your second Quint, and where will that one go?
The engine 5 now, we're either looking to downsize it to when we maybe trade it in for a smaller engine, so because it'll take up too much space with the extra ladder, or keep that one in reserve. So we're still working on those options.
Okay, so just to get me a little more familiar, so the Quint is kind of like a combination type of vehicle, am I right?
Correct, an engine and a ladder truck, so it has water and a ladder.
So if we had 2 of those, would that not make us more effective, or no?
You're going into there's this a big story that we probably don't have time to talk about tonight, but there has been it's called the Quint concept. It was ran in St. Louis, Missouri years ago. It didn't work out because fire departments realized you can't have all the same type of apparatus to cut back on manpower and all that. You have to have different various types of apparatus to respond to different incidents.
As you well know, I would not try to cut back on manpower in the fire department.
Well, so would you want it? You want to get that old engine 5, keep it in service and staff it up? Is that what you were?
Yeah, we'll talk to you about that tomorrow. And last thing, and this is just it seems weird to me that we're bonding for our matching fund. I mean, it just seems I don't ever remember that in my previous anticipated antique tenures. I don't ever remember us bonding to have a matching grant. That just seems peculiar to me.
We don't have money now.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing, and I agree with everything that's been said, and I agree to go forward for the important things, and I know we have the history of the trucks and everything from the last time we met, Chief. The original bond in front of this committee was not 2.6. Nope. And the reason that we went to it was after Councilor McGee noted that we could actually, and with your help, Chief, you gave us the information at the city council meeting, noted we could save money by going to the 3 apparatus instead of the original 2 that we had talked about, which made sense and still makes sense, because sooner or later, all 3 of these apparatuses have to be replaced. There was a minimal amount of discussion in committee on the command vehicles. That did not get translated into the language, as Todd pointed out. And that's the reason, one of the big reasons that we're here. But I should have picked up on it myself at the full city council meeting, because Todd did his job, and I didn't pick up on that. And I should have pointed out that that was part of the discussion and figure out why it wasn't in the language. But other than that, is there any other discussion? On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very
Maria.
much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Joe, if I can make a motion to reconsider item number 6 for the purpose of revoting?
Second.
Reconsider item number 6 for the purpose of revoting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Counselor Leahy?
Just want to vote yes.
Okay, so the record will reflect the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Tanya, and the last item, is there any update? Ryan, are you behind me?
I was taking care of it.
This was you explained to us on, that was already voted on, so why?
6 or 9? We did vote on it last meeting.
All right,
Which number are we on, 9?
I found it in committee, so I put it on the agenda.
I thought we did that last meeting.
Okay, we're all set? All right, thank you very much.
Hang on, Joe.
So 9 is
What?
done.
Yeah.
9's done.
You didn't down here for that, did you, Marcos?
No, Marcus is here for 8.
So 9, just say,
Comply, leave to it.
Already complied. It's not even there, it's a copy.
well, that's it, it's just a copy.
I just realized it when I looked at it, there's no writing on it from the original, so it's not the original in front of us. So we'll just
It's almost like it's not
comply with it, just keep the copy in committee, Ryan, all right?
I'd like to just, Tanya and I had a conversation about this during the week here, and I'd like Tanya just to update the public and the body about it.
Then are we going to have to take it up? How do we handle that, Joe?
Well, you're gonna have to take it up then. You're
have to
gonna
take it
have
up
to
then.
Are we talking about item number 9?
act on. So that's the problem. It's been acted
Been acted on, yeah.
So you really can't discuss it in committee
Right.
because it's already gone. You can take items up in committee if it's on the agenda,
Yeah.
but this really isn't an item on the agenda because it's already been voted on last.
All right, so
So you
there are
gotta be really
rules, we can't
careful
have a
about-
discussion, but we can file another order to have a discussion in the future if we feel necessary. Okay?
All right.
Sorry. All right, item number 8. Thanks, Tanya. Item number 8, communication dated January 1st of this year from the OPED Director, Marcus Barrero, regarding the opinion on the possible effects of debt exclusion override on the existing business community and the consequences for new business attraction. Motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Marcus, welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening.
And this is a response to an order that was received. I believe it was filed under Counselor Sullivan's name. And,
I think it was
and,
Todd
and
and
Counselor
myself.
McGee's, because I don't have the original order here. But what I have is the communication in response to that original order. And Marcus, we asked you to come in so we can talk about the communication and both your response and I think what the original order was looking for. Would you like to open up?
Would you like me to go over the opinion in general, or just whatever?
Yes, yeah.
So I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to go over it. I tried to condense it as much as possible while providing substance, not just writing a notepad. So I hit about 3.5 pages there. Essentially, I looked at the question as a matter of competitiveness for the city and our ability to meet needs should they arise, given any effect of an increase on taxes. So one of the first things that I looked at was clearly we all know the rate of the city of Holyoke is one of the highest in the state. And through the years, I have, being here 6-7 years now, I have heard both sides of the argument, right? High taxes is a high cost on business. That's a detriment to business. And other sides saying that, well, the cost of doing business is lower for a number of factors, whether it be real estate costs or the cost of energy. What I wanted to provide was an apples-to-apples comparison that really did not exist or we did not have at our disposal, so we had to think about how to create one. And so we looked at the tax burden on business. And so if you were to compare that with the Department of Revenue has and publishes a metric, which is the average taxes paid on a single-family home. And so that's a pretty good comparison across communities because not only do tax rates change, but valuation on houses are also very different. Now, the value of a single-family home versus condos or anything else is that you could expect a standard distribution around a median value. That is a pretty good apples-to-apples comparison. There's really nothing like that in the commercial or industrial space. You can't say the average value of a gas station, and that being representative of all commercial space. So really an apples-to-apples comparison would be something about, price per square foot. A square foot is a square foot throughout the state. What would be the tax burden per square foot? Just like you would compare rent per square foot. But of course, that required us digging into data and data throughout the entire state. Luckily, there are several data sets that the state has. And it does take a while, so we want to optimize what the comparison would be, right? We're not necessarily equal to some of the more rural towns or cities that make up the state. So an often comparison between cities like Holyoke is gateway cities. There are 26 cities and towns that have very similar demographics or economic conditions. But also, if we wanted to look at competitiveness, I wanted to look at every city and town, no matter what their characteristic, that shared a border with Holyoke, and then those significantly sized cities or towns that had direct access off of I-91, right? So if you're thinking of a business that's choosing to locate just in the region, looking at those. So that was 34 communities. We actually had to download the database of all commercial real estate for every parcel in each one of these communities. And then we calculated what the actual tax bill was. So not just taking the rate, but what are you paying at the end of the day? And so what we found was, and we had no real indication of where that was going to be. For all we knew, we could still be the worst or the third worst. Of those 34 similar communities, our competitive standing was 18 of 34, which is pretty much smack in the middle. We took whatever the debt exclusion override calculation was by the city's consultants. I understand that was about 272 equivalency. And added that on, and then ran the algorithm again. And so I discovered there's an error on my second page in the memo. We didn't drop to 20th. We dropped one position to 19th. I double counted Holyoke both on the list. Holyoke appears with the current rate and with the debt exclusion override. So my bad. So that's one way of looking at it.
72 with business and residential, or just business?
That's just business. There's a separate, but I wasn't asked for residential, so I guess if you want my opinion on that, I haven't done any calculation for that. So that was the first part. The second part is really just a simple statement that it is very possible and plausible that in the future, just like with our current tax rate, you may have a project that is at the margins of being profitable or is just in the red. And in those situations where we understand that there is a but-for condition, right? But for this marginal cost of the project, it cannot move forward, then that's when we implement the tools of special tax assessments or TIFs. We negotiate that over a period of time so that the pro forma is palatable enough to be financed and it's brought before this body and approved. So that would still be applicable one way or another, and it could go both on the marginal cost of a project or on the base. So to the extent that we still have those tools, it wouldn't really affect new projects that would be that are just on the margin. The third part is kind of addressing a little bit the paradigm of the tax effects on economic development in general, right? We tend to think that the higher the taxes, the more cumbersome, or the higher the tax rate, the more cumbersome it would be to have economic development. And certainly, as I try to explain at the beginning, you know, cost burden is something that is real. Businesses will want to have a lower cost profile. As far as the rate goes, and no one wants to pay more taxes, right? I cannot make a generalization over any one business's profitability, right? So it is completely plausible and possible that despite this opinion, someone could come in here representing their business that this would be a killer for them. That is completely plausible. But as far as the rate and what generalizations we can share from what we know of the data, so there's recent research through the Working Cities program at the Boston Federal Reserve Bank that looked at the period between 2001 and 2013 on what makes working cities work, right? What factors are more prominent in cities that are growing employment? And that study, you know, I can make it available to you. I put it in the footnotes, but if anyone wants it, I can forward it. And I did a regression analysis looking at multiple variables and what things were important leading in those communities that did experience economic growth as measured through employment. What factors were most employment? Surprisingly, the authors indicate that surprisingly there were certain issues that they thought were going to be very important, like crime rates, that actually were not in the top 10, but taxes were in there too. And so, even more to their surprise, taxes actually had a negative correlation. So that is to say that communities that had a higher tax rate experienced a more of an employment growth than those that had a lower tax rate. So that's just the rate in and of itself. So that's not to imply that there's causation. That's not to say, oh, you want more economic growth, you need to increase your taxes. But what it does suggest is that if we can look at a period of over 10 years of data of similar communities and it experienced growth, that there is no indication from that data that it would impede growth. So you can't make the one generalization in one direction, but you can in the other. So that's basically in a nutshell the 3 points that I go over in the memo. I did find 2 other little things, but I won't bring them up unless, you know, one typo and another syntax thing. But unless it becomes an issue, I won't bring it up.
What would be in the top 5 of, you know, part 3 here in terms of someone looking to come into the city of Holyoke or to expand in the city of Holyoke?
Are you referencing from the economic study, the Bluestone study that I referenced?
That's what you just referred to, yes.
Yeah. So I didn't list all of them, and my apologies that I don't know them by heart. I did list, I think, the top 3.
That's fine.
And it's in this paragraph somewhere. Available development sites, site amenities, and economic development marketing were among the top. I think those were the top 3, if not within the top 5. I think schools. It was either quality of schools or school scores. I don't remember which one. It was something about schools was like number 6. Other items that were like marginally there in the top 10 was like adequate electric, water, and communications infrastructure. That's kind of where, you know, everyone talks greatly about the HG&E, and labor force quality is very important as well. You know, number 1 was definitely sites, available development sites, and that's why, you know, time and time again throughout the years you will hear me talk about site readiness and preparing sites, not just greenfield sites, but when we talk about, you know, doing brownfields remediation, doing feasibility studies on buildings. Even if it's historic preservation, doing studies on what can advance the information that can advance that so that someone can get historic tax credits. All that goes towards site readiness, because if you don't have a site where businesses can go, never mind whether they're coming through us or not. It's actually quicker if they don't have to come through us. It's just that your local economy can provide spaces. That's the number one key. And I can, if anyone's interested, I can provide any of this background reading.
I'd like to see it. Counselor, later, Marcus, if you could just provide it.
Yep.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yep. Thanks, Marcos. I don't have it right in front of me. If I could borrow that for a minute, Joe?
Got it.
I've read it about 20 times, so I think some of it I've got by heart, but
I'm flattered.
yeah.
Hey.
The contributing factors you referred to that stood out above, the tax rate were school success, right? Adequate electric, which I agree, water and communications infrastructure, I agree, but school success and labor force quality generally identified as Holyoke strengths.
Yeah, so that was one of the syntax errors. I meant to emphasize the adequate electric, water, communications infrastructure and labor force quality generally, because Western Mass and in Holyoke you see a cluster of manufacturing businesses, and it's not a coincidence that they're here, is because they can get access to the labor force that knows how to do specifically the type of manufacturing that's done here. I wasn't trying to imply that we have such great school success here. I'm not making a point on schools. It was a syntax error on how I read it. When I say Holyoke strengths, I was referring to the last 2 points: infrastructure and labor force quality.
Right, but the quality of our labor force and the schools are not outstanding strengths of Holyoke right now. The $1.20 figure used that puts us in the middle of the state, that's interesting, but I don't think any of these other communities that fall into that pool, I know we've got the gateway cities in there and stuff too, but I went and dug out the actual records on about 50 different businesses, and I'd like to share with everybody, some examples on the low value side where this really, it wouldn't matter, this debt exclusion override. We've got a real problem here with valuations. The valuations on the residential stuff, I accept. We get a lot of that from MLS, and we can almost track that on a daily basis with the sales. In the commercial end of things, we've got a lot of problems here that I don't think any of the gateway cities is as severe as Holyoke. I know none of the others in our corridor here have the amount of vacant space we have that drag these down. So I'll give you a couple examples. We have a property here that right now is paying 3 cents a square foot. 3 cents a square foot. That property is valued at, what is it here? It's valued at $38,000, even though it sold recently for $200,000. Okay, we have a new marijuana facility down on Appleton Street. The building I know is separate, but rents are figured into the factor of valuations of buildings. This building is still valued at only $282,000, even though we've heard all this millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of work being done on it. They're paying 28 cents a square foot on that factor. So, as an example of them, so if we were to do this debt exclusion override, it would add $1,800 to their already marginal tax bill. It wouldn't affect this business at all. The same's true of one at 66 Canal Street, 22 cents a square foot, even though the building is fully occupied from one end to the other, and valued at $552,000 for 102,000 square feet. We've got other ones that just drag it down in general. Here's a building that used to be on the tax rolls. It isn't even there. It probably doesn't go into the thing. A $9 million building that's now a nonprofit. We've got problems that other cities don't have. And I'm not talking about the high-speed computing center. This is up by the mall owned by Bay State Medical, you know, where we see CEOs making millions of dollars. This other company here that I refer to, it's based in Hartford. Once again, undervalued, 80 cents a square foot. So to these people, the increase for them would be $3,000. They're so low, it won't affect them. They really don't give a rat's you know what. But we've got other ones in this city, and it's just staggering what they pay. The Holyoke Mall pays $5.60 a square foot, not $1.20. The average is right out the window. We put this debt exclusion override through. We're looking at an increase to the mall of $612,000 a year. Now, I've been to all the meetings with the on the building committee. I know we need these schools. I want these schools, all right? But this debt exclusion is not the way to go about it. $600,000 just from the mall. That's like 20% of the money we need for the schools, just from this one company. And we've got Gary Rome. This would add $11,000 to his tax burden, all right? A guy that already is paying $172,000 a year in real estate taxes and donates generously to the community, and we're going to heap another $11,000 plus the CPA on. And I've heard a lot over the last, from the public, from people, we don't need another Walgreens, we don't want another Walgreens. Give me 50 Walgreens, all right? They're paying $3.23 a square foot, and their tax burden right now is $63,000 a year. Boy, we could use a few more Walgreens, I'll tell you. But at $3.83 a square foot, I don't believe that the Walgreens in Chicopee is paying this kind of a tax burden. It's, or if they are, I can't say that, you know, we're underpricing ourselves. We've got our good friends at People's Bank, right? This would increase their taxes by $36,000 a year. A company that's already paying $528,000 in real estate tax. It's going to have a devastating effect, and it goes on and on and on, right down Northampton Street, from, you know, Nick's Nest. You know, this isn't a corporation. This is a family-run business. That's $500 more out of their pocket to businesses that are already, you know, struggling to stay in existence. So that's the high end, the low end, and, you know, then we've got the others that'll probably be okay with it. They're right in the middle. They're still only paying 58 cents a square foot, way below this $1.20, but it really wouldn't matter to them. I don't think it would. I mean, I shouldn't probably be speaking for them, but we've got good companies, Sonigo Products. They hire a lot of people. It'd cost them $4,000 more a year. I don't know if that's enough to hurt them or not. Aegis said it cost $1,100. They're paying 98 cents a square foot. Some of these companies it might be fine with. You know, some might, you know, some aren't going to care at all because they're so undervalued. But for the main, for the bulk of these big companies we have that are already paying huge properties in this taxes in the city, this is a staggering amount of money. So I can't accept this. We're in the middle of the pack theory. The numbers, you know, anybody can massage things and makes numbers play out a certain way. You take some of these other companies, and I can tell you, you've got companies like Subaki, you've got other companies, this could be enough to push them over the edge and relocate back, go back to their corporate. They have other branches and stuff like that down in South Carolina. And I know that, these could be deciding factors for some of these companies where they're already paying huge, huge dollars. So the effect of this debt of exclusion override on the commercial picture in Holyoke is not reflective in that $1.20 scenario. As far as being able to do TIFs for new companies, how many new companies have we had come in here and we've been able to offer them a TIF? I can't think of any new companies coming in, new businesses coming in here.
I mean, if that's a question that you want me to address, ideally, you don't want to have to do a TIF for a new company coming in here. So
Well, we're going to have to. What new company is going to come in here with a tax rate of $40?
So if I may,
42.
Ideally, I would never have to put one before you, right? Ideally, we have companies like every cannabis business that's come before this body for a permit that doesn't even bring up our tax rate. You made an example of one of them, so I'll say I can't speak in depth to the timing of the valuation, but every one of these companies understands that when they put in $2, $5, $10, $15 million into these buildings, it will impact the assessment eventually, whether it's now in the year of the certificate of occupancy or the year after, or whatever cycle the assessor does it. But the tax rate doesn't come into factor because we have because what they're going to pay in taxes is worth it for them, right? And so that's what's behind the number. This opinion isn't meant to massage anything. It's trying to provide a high-level overview to answer the question, because I can't answer the question for every business in Holyoke, right? And as I said, it is very plausible that someone will say, this will be the death of my business in Holyoke. That is completely possible. And so as policymakers, you have to decide, is that okay that for a handful of companies that may be true, but in aggregate, it may actually not only not have an effect on the economy, but if we're actually addressing the issues that make us competitive, will it actually make us better? Every policy has winners and losers, and so that's not for me to decide. I'm just telling you from a high-level perspective, what the data shows is that a high tax rate does not necessarily pan out. In fact, it doesn't. That's what it shows, that it doesn't impede economic development. You mentioned the mall, so that's a pretty good example because they're the highest assessed property in the city of Holyoke, and they're assessed somewhere around $215 million, right? So the most comparative mall that we could find in Massachusetts is in Burlington, Massachusetts. It's valued almost a third higher at $320 million, despite having a somewhat smaller population and a smaller average income around them. And yes, their tax rate is lower. It's around $30. They still pay more, that mall, than ours. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Marcos, hang on. I'm not attacking this, but look, you just did it right now. Burlington, Mass. Has a smaller population. They're on the Beltway for Boston. All right. All those cities around there have smaller populations, but they're in the Boston Beltway.
Right.
They have millions
so you would have to
of
look.
cars
So you
go
would
by
have to
every
look at
day.
the profitability of companies. Pyramid is boasting that it's had one of the most profitable years in its history right now. So I don't have the resources at my disposal to do an analysis on every one of the businesses in Holyoke, but I stand by the data that I found. Certainly, it may affect some businesses, but in general, it doesn't seem to erode our competitiveness in the market significantly. I should also add that the numbers here include already the impact of the CPA, so it's all included with that.
Yeah, Marcus, I'll go back to the other question. What new businesses have we seen in the last couple of years come around? Big businesses.
Every cannabis business that's come in here, there's been like 6 or 7 just in the last year.
How many have started up?
Well, GTI has already started up. That's a $13 million investment.
On which we're realizing nothing yet. Nothing.
Yes, things take time. I mean, I don't understand what the point of the question is, Counselor.
Well, the question on that, as far as having the available tools in our toolbox, as far as I can see, We have a toolbox with nice tools. It's got a padlock on it, and it's up on a shelf where nobody can reach it. I've sat here now for 3 years and watched businesses that are longstanding businesses go through countless public hearings, delayed meetings, and all kinds of delays and stuff just to get a sign put up, all right, or just to get an ATM put in. To say that we've got a tool here with these TIFs that we can attract people, they're looking at us right now, and with a tax rate of 40, well, let's go up there and try and see if I can get a TIF. I can't even get a sign, a billboard, or an ATM, or, you know. I don't see these as tools that we have. And I see this, right now, this debt exclusion override as something that will be the nail in the coffin of any industry. We might as well say our goal is to drive all industry out of this town. We want to become a bedroom community like Long Meadow.
So we've done at least half a dozen tax incentives during my tenure here, and they have passed. I don't remember anyone that has been denied. And if your measure of success for a local economy is, you know, whether Google's been here or Microsoft or a Chinese rail company, that I can't point to any of those, but if you look at a series of metrics that determine economic health, such as increasing property values and decreasing unemployment rate, where we're at the record lows from before several recessions ago, the inventory of vacant space that has been removed, then it would all point out to a healthy local economy. That's not always going to be driven, and I would argue most of the time will not be driven by large anchors. Large anchors don't just pop into a community and establish themselves there. You have to create an environment, an economic ecosystem that works for productivity. And so I understand the concern with a high tax rate. I'm not saying it is insignificant, particularly to some businesses, but very smart people with PhDs that have looked at this have looked at over a decade of data in Massachusetts and have shown that it is not as detrimental as we think. And in fact, there are indications to the contrary, that when you address the issues of competitiveness, the high tax rate is not a determining factor.
Well, I guess we're not going to agree on that part.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
No.
Kind of.
Councilor Sullivan's taking a breather. Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. So hypothetically, if we approve this Proposition 2.5 override, we still don't have any control of the two new schools, right? So Steve Streich has done a fantastic job. I mean, I can't think of any other system that's been able to have two schools, you know, on the line at the same time, right? So I mean, that's huge. However, are these two schools going to improve scores? Are they going to improve? What exactly will they improve?
I can't really speak to that part. Everything having to do with the actual schools and their operation is exogenous to my analysis. I asked for one number. What is the impact of the debt exclusion override? And I was given 272.
Oh, fairness. And you did a great job in that. You do a good job. However, so I mean, this is essentially a debt exclusion override. It's the same thing as Proposition 2.5, right? There's no difference.
I'm actually not well versed in that topic.
Right? Same thing?
A little different.
30 years later,
Yeah.
but an override.
The specific purpose.
Yeah, specific.
Well, I mean, for the average person at home, you know, the home gamer that's sitting home, it's a Proposition 2.5 override, right? All right. You know, so I've been sitting in that lovely chair over there for close to 20 years, and Bob Gilbert from the Chamber of Commerce has been sitting at that microphone from Dowd Insurance, and he's essentially ingrained in all of us that if we even got to the $40 mark, it would put the essential nail in the coffin that would ruin any business that wants to come into the city of Holyoke. So, I mean, I haven't researched all of those PhDs that you had referenced tonight, and maybe with the help of you, I could. However, it's ingrained in us that, and I'm not sure whether the Chamber of Commerce, the Taxpayers Association, or what any of these groups in the city of Holyoke have to say about this. However, if we're going up to $2, so you're saying it's $2.70 if we do this onto the business?
The information I was provided is that the debt exclusion override, and I'm not entirely sure how they arrived to this number. I assume they did a similar breakdown as the current taxes between commercial and residential, the impact on the commercial tax rate would be $2.72.
All right, so say if we're at $40 now, so it'd be 42, so it's like $43. And so what we've been entrusted in hearing from Mr. Gilbert in the Chamber of Commerce, and so, you know, maybe your research is correct, maybe he's correct, maybe it's somewhere in the middle is correct, but this is a significant, this is very significant news, especially the fact that the City of Holyoke, the City Council, the mayor, school committee, we don't have any control over the schools. And so now essentially we're asked from the school department, from Mr. Zreich, who's a very good man, I respect him dearly, and also Anthony Soto, I think he does a fantastic job as well. So we're asked to put this on the ballot, but yet we have zero control. And I'm not even sure if this is going to improve the quality of the test scores. You know, and that's essentially what I want to know is are our children, the children of Holyoke, going to improve on this? And I know that's not what we'd asked you. This is just my little editorial. Thank you.
One interesting story is when I started in 2012, I remember a series of presentations that Bob Gilbert was making, and I'll never forget because I was freaked out over the expectations he was creating for me, where he was showing the projections of the finances of the city and how surely in I think it was 2015, the city would go bankrupt. And then he would inevitably, usually say, then Marcos will work his magic, and he would always go like that. And I was like, oh boy. So thankfully, we did not go bankrupt in 2015.
Councilor McGee.
Just one question, Marcos. I know this wasn't for you,